Have you ever wondered how something so personal, like a spiritual awakening, turns into this huge global institution? It's a pretty wild journey, right? Today, we're going to dive into that whole process, how raw revelation becomes organized religion. It's a story of structure, control, and, well, a search to get back to the beginning.
So, where do we even start? Well, it really boils down to this one big question that I think a lot of us have. We throw these words around all the time, but to really get what's going on, we've got to pull them apart and see what makes them tick. Here's a simple way to look at it. Spirituality, that's your personal hotline. It's that one-on-one connection you feel, that inner spark. It's totally private, totally transformative. But religion? That's what happens when a bunch of people who felt that same spark decide to build something together. It's the community, the structure, the building they create to protect and share that feeling. Okay, so how does that happen? How does that deeply personal thing, that spark, leap from being just for one person to being for a whole community? Let's trace that arc and see how it unfolds. Imagine that initial spiritual moment as a fire, and not some neat little candle flame. No way. It's a wildfire. It's raw, it's bright, it's totally uncontainable. It's an experience that's way, way bigger than any set of rules or doctrines. And you can see how it naturally progresses from there, right? It all starts with one person. They have this mind-blowing, life-changing experience, and it's so powerful they just have to share what they've learned. Then other people get it. And to make sure these amazing teachings don't just fade away, they create a tradition to pass them on. And then, to protect that tradition, they build a structure around it. Rules, rituals, laws, the whole shebang. Now, this is super important. This whole process, it doesn't start from a bad place. Not at all. It's born from a really good, really human desire to protect something precious. It's not about ruining the original fire. It's about trying to capture its light in a crystal, something solid that can last. But, and this is the big but, here's where things can take a turn. That beautiful desire to preserve something sacred, it can slowly, almost without anyone noticing, turn into a desire to possess and control it. Let's try another metaphor. Picture a living, flowing river. That same spiritual fire we were just talking about, you can think of it as this dynamic, moving current. It's always fresh, always renewing itself. But then what do? We start building dams. We divert that wild river into these neat, orderly canals. It gets funneled into these rigid systems of authority, and suddenly, following the rules can feel more important than your own personal discovery. So why? Why does this happen? Well, it plugs right into our human nature. We crave certainty. That wild, unpredictable river experience can feel chaotic, maybe even a little scary. An institution, though, that gives you rules, order, a sense of safety. And so a lot of the time, we end up trading the freedom of the river for the security of the canal. And what happens when you take that need for certainty and control to its absolute societal extreme? When it merges with the power to govern, that's when you get theocracy. And man, history is just full of examples, isn't it? You've got the prophets in ancient Israel going up against the state-sanctioned priesthoods. You've got the Inquisitions. In all these cases, something that started as spiritual guidance gets turned into a tool for obedience. Questioning the ruler becomes the same thing as questioning God. But look, this isn't just about ancient empires or faraway governments. This can happen right inside our own heads. Anytime our ego puffs up its chest and says, I have the one and only truth, and we shut down that little curious voice inside, well, we've basically created a tiny dictatorship in our own mind. So you see, there are dangers on both sides of this coin. If you take either spirituality or religion to an extreme, without the other to balance it out, things can get pretty dicey. Think about it. Spirituality all by itself can just drift away into a universe of one. It can become all about me, where my personal truth is the only thing that matters, and you totally forget about community. But religion all by itself, it can petrify. It turns to stone. It becomes this rigid hierarchy that's all about rules long after anyone remembers the living spirit they were supposed to represent. One drifts, the other freezes. Okay, so if there are pitfalls on both sides, what are we supposed to do? How do we find our way through this? Well, there's another really beautiful metaphor that can help clear things up.
The idea is really simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Just think of every organized religion as a unique filter.
Yeah, a filter. It's not the whole light, just one lens that lets a certain color, a certain fragment of the whole thing shine through. One might emphasize love, another law, another wisdom, but they're all just gesturing towards the same vast, unnameable reality.
And this is the absolute key. The filters themselves aren't the problem. The problem is when we mistake the filter for the light, when we start believing our little colored lens is the only thing that's real. That's when truth becomes tribal and revelation becomes our exclusive property. So, where do we go from here? The answer isn't to tear everything down or just go it alone. The real work is to get spirit and structure talking to each other again, to bring them back into a healthy, dynamic conversation.
And this is the hopeful path forward. It's about religion reconnecting with that wild, mystical fire at its heart. And it's about personal spirituality grounding itself back in community and ethical action. The goal is to see revelation not as a static stone tablet, but as that living river, always flowing, always renewing. And that leaves all of us with a final, powerful question to reflect on. How do we, each in our own lives and in our communities, keep that sacred space inside us truly free, while making sure that any outer temple we build stays humble, always a servant to the Spirit, and never its master?